Shimon of Cuba's Communist Central Committee delivered a message of anti-American invective, the theme of Cuba's foreign policy. His audience included 500 students from Scandinavia, France, and Britain, some flower children, many veterans of student riots in their homelands. They arrived on cut-rate charter flights and their living expenses were paid by the Cuban government. They spent their mornings working in the fields, their afternoons in political discussions, their evenings like this. This past summer, the Cubans also entertained several American groups, Draft Dodgers, Black Panthers, and a delegation from the Students for a Democratic Society, the SDS. The United States government makes it as hard as possible for Americans to visit Cuba, but they go anyway, and while there, live far better than the average Cuban.
As an American, I was surprised that the enemy, quote, would get such good treatment here. I have been treated in Cuba wonderfully, royally, as a matter of fact.
Pat Renpage, a 27-year-old school teacher from California, is touring the island as a guest of the Cuban Women's Federation.
In terms of the Cuban Revolution's effect on youth, I think it has a lot to say for a society in which young people are the most important and which they feel they're the most important. I think the Cuban Revolution has had a special magnetism for American students and youth. Young people, I'm sorry to say, in the United States, as I see it, don't have this real dedication and spirit and drive that Cuban youth have.
Most visiting Americans stay at the former Havana Hilton Hotel. Two of them were university students from New York City.
Yeah, I came to Cuba because the United States controls all of Latin America and has for many years. Cuba was the first country to throw off American domination. I wanted to see what they had done. I wanted to see how they'd done it. I wanted to see what the difference was for people who lived here.
I came to Cuba because I support the Cuban Revolution in principle. And I came to learn the details of it, to learn about the Cuban Revolution and what they're trying to do, and to learn from it in order to help me.
For American radicals, for American students, the most impressive feature of Cuba will be the building of the 21st man, to be of the man of the 21st century, to build an entirely new consciousness, to change all of the old attitudes and to change the morality from one based in the individual I and to put it into the collective we, which much more enforces individuality than detracts from it. The people in the United States, particularly the young people, I think, look to the Cuban Revolution with hope that this offers a solution that the United States doesn't offer.
This is Radio Havana, Cuba.
Free territory of America.
And here is the news.
The U.S. Black Panther Party has told Cuban Prime Minister Major Fidel Castro that the sacrifices and glorious victories of the Cuban people are an inspiration to the struggle of the peoples of the world.
The Black Panther Party also states that the American blacks are inspired in the heroic example of Che and are waging armed struggle against the U.S. racist structure.
The message ends by voicing the wishes of the
Radio Havana spearheads Cuba's worldwide ideological offensive. Around the clock, in 8 languages, including Spanish, Arabic, and South American Indian dialects, the message is the same. The path to progress must be violence, bloodshed, and guerrilla war.
The Cubans are saying to the rest of Latin America, to the rest of the underdeveloped world, to the rest of the world that is dominated by the United States principally, that through armed struggle, you too can throw off your oppressors. And here, look at the Vietnamese. This is your example. Look at us. We are your example. And they're right.
But the real test of Castro's revolution is not its propaganda, but what it has done and is doing to Cuba. For it is on that basis the revolution will finally succeed or fail. Marjorie Moore is an American who has witnessed the revolution from the start. Married to a Cuban, she has lived there since 1950. She teaches English at Havana University and firmly supports Fidel Castro.
There's been considerable contrast, naturally, in our lives before the revolution and after the revolution. For example, my husband was a businessman, a typical bourgeois businessman. Life was very easy, very pleasant for us, and for many people in Havana. But it wasn't the same for people in the country. We were very conscious of the difference, and the terrible difference between the capital and the country. So that when the revolution came along, we found that it talked about the same things we had always thought, the things that should be done in the country, the things that needed to be done. And we were very enthusiastic, very keen, and interested to see if they would be done, if all of these things could be done. It seemed very difficult, but they are being done. We are probably one of the 2 or 3 remaining members of the former Havana Yacht Club. There were several private yacht clubs in Havana. The Havana Yacht Club was the most exclusive. Now they are constantly jammed with people. It's very different now than it used to be. I don't feel nostalgic. I'm glad. It's much better for all of the people to be able to use these places rather than 10% of the population or less, as in the past.
We have to work to make this kind of man, this kind of new society. But we don't care if the work is hard or it is not hard. If we have to sacrifice ourselves in any way we can for our country and for keeping this new type of society we have, we do it, we just do it because we think this is the correct thing. By helping our country develop itself, we're helping ourselves and the people. This is a new kind of man we want to make and we are making. We do feel conscious about forming ourselves as new people with different ideas. This difference in education that we have now is that they make us see things in a different way. I know that I'm not going to be an architect because I'm going to feel better or have more money, but to have more welfare for the society, to create these things that our society needs and doesn't have now.
In many ways, the university students are the pampered class of the new society. They live better than most Cubans. And in a society where revolutionary zeal is more important to success than either intelligence or competence, it is not surprising that they sound exactly like Castro.
Everyone is convinced that Cuba, the way that the Communist Party is directing Cuba is the best way, because we want to become Cuba communist in the future. And the way that we're doing it, the way that they're directing us is the best way. At least we're convinced that the way that they're teaching us is the best way.
The militancy of the students goes beyond words. They all belong to the armed militia and have little patience with anyone who would change Cuba's ways.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Columna izquierda. 1, 2, 3.
A person that isn't convinced that the best rule is a communist rule can speak, they can say anything about it. The only thing they can't do is act, because here we're not going to stand for any counter-revolution, because if we've accomplished the revolution, or we're trying to get to the revolution, those counter-revolutionaries are in our way, and we can't support them. They can't be there. We can't stand for anyone standing in our way.
But the most dangerous trait of the Cuban new man is the belief, fostered by Fidel Castro, that Cuba has a sacred mission to liberate the world from imperialism. Che Guevara tried armed insurrection in Bolivia. He failed and he died. But a whole generation of Cubans claim they will continue, whatever the cost.
I'm sure I would be willing to go to South America, to Latin America, to fight. It would be a great honor. I think the United States is one of the biggest menaces for everyone in this world. If I would be selected to go and fight in Bolivia, I'd go. And I'd help in any way I can, even if I have to give up my life, I don't care. Because the main purpose is to save those and help those countries that are living very miserably now.
We have to help these people to liberate themselves, even if it means war with the United States. We're in the disposition to fight the United States because of its imperialism all the way.